How did you come to this place of worship? Was it the whisper of great mystery stirring within? Questions yearning for answers? Or the pain of deep sorrow squeezing your tender heart? Did you come searching for comfort or companionship? Or the soothing embrace of voices lifted in song? Perhaps it was the gentle prodding of a wise and curious child. Mommy, why don't we go to church? Or maybe you felt a subtle longing for rituals and lessons learned in beloved or not so beloved communities of faith that had fallen by the wayside or been cast off in the process of your becoming. Whatever the path that leads you to this sacred space, you are welcomed with the promise of open minds, loving hearts, and invite the children forward, but it looks like it's summertime and they are off playing somewhere and not here with us in church. So I'm going to challenge and request that all of you participate in this message for all ages, and you can do that from your adult personhood, or you can do that from your child personhood, or whatever calls to you. But to start, I just wanted to take a minute to really appreciate all of the children that come to Live Oak because they are really an important part of our Live Oak family. And I know my own children are 18 and 24 now, but they grew up here. And so I know that this is a place, Live Oak has always been a place which really values a multi-generational presence in our community and in our Live Oak family. This part of the service is called the Message for All Ages, and it's our opportunity to sit with the children and really spend some special time with them to make the worship service a welcoming place for all ages. And it's also a time where we get to teach the grown-ups something, hopefully, at the same time. So we think about our church community where everybody can be a teacher and a learner. And sometimes children don't really think of themselves as teachers, and so we bring that out in them. Everyone's voice matters, no matter what their age is. So think for a moment, and if you're thinking from your child person, think of something that you learned from an adult, something really cool that you learned from an adult.
Adults don't know everything.
There you go. That's an important lesson. Anybody else? Something that you learned from an adult?
Taking care of pets and insects and creatures in nature.
Great. So how to appreciate nature and really care for other beings. Go ahead, Ron.
How to play tennis.
How to play tennis. Right. I learned how to cook from my mom, so that was an important thing for me because I really enjoy cooking. So what about something you learned from a friend your own age? Could be recently, could be a long time ago. Okay, I hear the chuckling. It's all grown-ups. Go ahead.
It's not over.
All right, we'll move on. Can you think of something that you learned from a child? Patience. Good. Yes. Fish don't have eyelashes. That's important to know. Very good, yes. How to fix the computer. Yes, yes, so many lessons there. Yeah.
To be in the moment.
To be in the moment, great.
Buzzards and vultures are not the same.
Buzzards and vultures are not the same. So if we want to know more about that, Phil, we can ask you after the service. I did not know that. Okay, great. So we're all learning and growing together. When I think about my childhood, I think about that question that the grown-ups always ask. What do you want to be when you grow up? And I had no idea. And one time when I was really young, I had to do it for a school assignment. What do you want to be when you grow up? So I said that I wanted to be a majorette. And I drew a picture of this confident woman with a colorful outfit and imagined myself prancing up and down the football field, twirling my baton, and that was my idea of what it meant to be an adult. Fortunately, that dream went by the wayside very quickly, and I grew up to do something altogether different. But have you ever had to answer that question? I know if I can say my friend Wendy, who I love and adore, has known from the time she was little that she wanted to be a teacher. And that was a dream that she fulfilled. So what about the rest of you? Did your ideas change about what you wanted to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be the trash collector.
Awesome.
It would be a
Great.
good union job, I should look into it.
Anybody else? Yes.
I wanted to be a grandma in a rocking chair from the time I was 4. Now I finally am.
Yay! Sometimes you have to be patient for those dreams, right? Carter.
Play center field for the Dodgers.
There you go. Okay. Priscilla.
I wanted to be an airline hostess.
Nice. Larry. An astronaut. Great. Go ahead, Mickey.
I'm a psychologist.
Psychologist. Great. I didn't even know what a psychologist was when I was a kid, so that's. Lisa.
I wanted to be a poet and a mother in equal measure.
So your dreams were realized, full blown. That's awesome. So sometimes our dreams change and our ideas change through the years, but sometimes they sort of stay the same, and either way is fine. But it's all answers to the questions, what do you want to be when you grow up? So my next question for you is, when are you grown up? What does it mean? When does that happen? Ron?
During a holiday, you give more presents than you receive.
Ah, great. Very nice. I like that. I like that.
Okay.
Anybody else? When are you grown up?
Pretty soon.
Any day now, right? So again, growing happens in stages. It happens when a baby starts to eat solid food, when we start to walk and talk and ride a bike and swim, and all of those things that we learn through our lives, when we get a driver's license, graduate from high school. And at Live Oak, we mark some of those milestones with our coming of age ceremony, our bridging ceremony, our youth ceremony. These are ways that we celebrate our youth. And for our little ones, we celebrate them each week when we do the Message for All Ages, when we have intergenerational events where the adults can play with the kids and really get to know the young people in our congregation. Those are really important times for our multi-generational congregation. So when thinking about, the growing process, I was thinking about trees and how you plant a tree and it's little and it's spindly and you have to nurture it. And as long as the tree's alive, it needs the same sorts of nourishment. It needs water and sun and clean air and that kind of stuff. But fragile, tender trees grow into big, strong trees. And if I think about what makes a tree happy in its older years, I think about little critters scampering up the trunks and birds nesting and new generations coming along. And I think that those are the happiest trees. And I think that people are kind of like that too. And although we don't have rings in our trunks that tell about seasons of drought and rain and the stories of our lives, we do have memories and we have words and we have stories that we can share with each other and with our children. And so that's an important part of growing. It's an important part of continuing to grow no matter how old we are. So today, one of our favorite grown-ups, Jim Ross, is going to talk about this. And the truth is that we never stop growing. And as we grow, different things seem important, different things excite us, different things make us laugh and cry. But grown-ups always have things to learn from children. And children always have things to learn from grown-ups. And so if we remember that and we pay attention and we ask questions and we spend time getting to know one another, then we'll all be a stronger congregation and we'll be happier in our lives.
Well, good morning. So nice to see so many young people here. While I have command of the pulpit, I wanted to do something a little out of the ordinary. Number one, I want to put a plug in for next Sunday's service. It's not your typical Sunday service. It's going to be built around the Ware Lecture from General Assembly. If you folks don't know what the Ware Lecture is, it's an annual lecture where UUA invites people of note, everybody from Kurt Vonnegut to Holly Near, the singer. This year's Ware lecturer was the Dr. Ibu Patel, and he talks about Interfaith Initiative. We're going to show that lecture next Sunday and sort of build the service around it, and there will be a discussion group afterwards. So, Enough about next Sunday. Let's talk about me. As your order of service notes, the sermon is called Getting Old or Growing Older. And you know, I am constantly fascinated with life's little odd synchronicities. I'm rereading for the umpteenth time through my sermon this morning, and I stop and take a break and look at the LA Times. And I don't know how many of you get the LA Times, but this morning's Parade magazine, all about barbecuing. However, there's an essay inside by a lady by the name of Connie Schultz. It's entitled Life in the Middle Ages. And the tagline is, halfway through my 6th decade, I've made a wonderful discovery about aging. You get to keep growing. I thought, well, did this lady read my mind before I started this morning? I have to share one piece with you. She says, I admit to occasional hand-wringing in front of the mirror, but most of the time I'm having fun reinventing myself. Magical thinking helps, as was duly noted by one of my wisecracking kids, who will remain nameless because he's my only son. Really, he said? You're middle-aged? Planning to live to 110, are you? Anyway, I've been getting old and growing older now for about 67 years. I know some of you still think of me as a young whippersnapper, a rookie perhaps, okay? But the question at hand really is, are we, yes, you and me, getting old, or are we growing older? Not all of my 67 years has been spent growing older. Some of it was just getting old. I'd get out of bed in the morning and my bed would make the most god-awful sounds. Snap, crackle, pop. I told Jan, I said, honey, we've got to get a new bed. That's when she said, sweetheart, I've got some bad news for you. It's not the bed that's making those awful sounds. Always the observant person, my wife. Of course, she was right. It was me causing that awful racket in the morning, not the bed. I was getting old. Since I had retired at age 60, I'd had 2 total knee replacements and 2 bouts with lymphoma, one treated with radiation and the second with chemotherapy. I was getting old. I was feeling old. The body parts were failing me. However, these, I think, are the merit badges that I've earned that I think allow this rookie to speak about aging to some extent this morning. Now, if you do an internet search on aging or growing old, it's amazing what you'll find. Some of it's very wise, some of it's junk. Unfortunately, more junk than you might think. But I thought the words of comedian George Carlin might get us off on the right foot this morning. Mr. Carlin talks, perhaps a bit irreverently, about aging with these words. Some of you may have seen this comedy bit before, and if you have, please forgive me. I hope I can do it justice. Mr. Carlin is much better at this than me. George Carlin says, do you realize that the only time in our lives when we like to get old is when we're kids? If you're less than 10 years old, you're so excited about aging that you think in fractions. How old are you? I'm 4.5. You're never 36 and a half. You're 4.5 going on 5. That's the key. Now you get into your teens and they can't hold you back. You jump to the next number, or even a few ahead. How old are you? I'm going to be 16. You could be 13, but hey, you're going to be 16. And then the greatest day of your life, you become 21. Even the words sound like a ceremony. You become 21. Yes, but then you turn 30. What happened there? Makes you sound like bad milk. He turned. We had to throw him out. There's no fun now. You're just a sour dumpling. What's wrong? What's changed? You become 21, you turn 30, then you're pushing 40. Whoa, put on the brakes, it's all slipping away. But before you know it, you reach 50. And sadly, your dreams are gone. But wait, you make it to 60. You didn't think you would. You become 21, you turn 30, you push 40, you reach 50, and you make it to 60. You've built up so much speed that you hit 70. After that, it's a day-by-day thing. You hit Wednesday. You get into your 80s, and every day is a complete cycle. You hit lunch, you reach bedtime, and it doesn't end there. Into the 90s, you start going backwards. I was just 92. Then a strange thing happens. If you make it over 100, you become a little kid again. I'm 100.5. And so ends Mr. Carlin's thoughts on aging. So I'm sure that many of you can relate to the concept of getting old. The creaks and groans of a body that no longer functions like the one we had in our 20s and 30s. So how does one grow older rather than just get old? Just got old, as Carlin says. It sounds like something that went bad in your refrigerator, doesn't it? That metaphor sort of fits. Something that gets old in your refrigerator, it's left unattended, pushed to the back, forgotten. It gets moldy, sometimes even fuzzy. Well, I don't want to get moldy or fuzzy. Okay, maybe fuzzy's all right. We can't avoid getting old. You might make it a little easier on yourself if you follow the suggestions in your AARP publications and watch Dr. Oz every weekday afternoon and have a close relationship with your physician. But how does one improve the process of growing older? Growing older, what many of us refer to as aging gracefully. Lord knows we've had some wonderful examples of aging gracefully in this congregation. I'm not going to name any names this morning. Most of us know who they are. So what's the secret? What's the formula? A little dash of this, a dollop of that? Well, I'm afraid it's not that simple because it's not a generalized formula. It's much more individualized. What works for one doesn't necessarily work for the other. One of my very favorite quotes that's meant a lot to me over the years is by the poet and essayist Rainer Maria Rilke. And it may shed some light on this process of growing older. If you've been a Unitarian for very long, you're probably familiar with it. Please follow his words on the screen as I read. Rilke says, "Have patience with everything unresolved in your heart and try to love the questions themselves as if they were locked rooms or books written in a very foreign language. Don't search for the answers, which could not be given to you now, because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps then, someday, far in the future, you will gradually, without even noticing it, live your way into the answer." Why do these words speak to me? I've lived through a number of questions in my life, and I'm living through many more right now. And for me, that's the primary component of growing older rather than just getting old. And this morning I want to take Rilke's quote a step further. What has helped me live those questions? What has allowed me to unlock some of those rooms and read those books in foreign languages? Each of you, I'm sure, has your own answer. But for me, the answer is young people. People aged 25 and younger. Am I practicing ageism? I don't think so, because those of you who know me well know that I love people of all ages. But I want to talk this morning about how young people have helped me in the process of growing older. Last week, my wife Jan chose the hymn "We Laugh, We Cry" as part of her Sunday service. Some of the lyrics of that hymn didn't really strike me until I was in the process of writing this sermon. The third verse of that hymn includes this phrase, "And with the grace of age, we share the wonder of youth." With the grace of age, we share the wonder of youth. I try to include lots of young people in my life. Ever since I retired from my job at Tri-Counties Regional Center, I've continued to supervise marriage and family therapist interns at that agency. I love helping them live through their questions on their way to becoming licensed psychotherapists. They're so excited about the path they've chosen, and you can't help but have some of that energy and excitement rub off on you. And just a few months ago, I enrolled in a 2-day workshop run by the Alternative to Violence program. This workshop was organized and co-facilitated by Lizzie Rodriguez, a member of this congregation. I spent 2 very full Saturdays from 9 in the morning until 6 in the evening with approximately 25 young men and women between the ages of 13 and 18 who were juvenile offenders. The exercises in the workshop are designed to develop alternative, nonviolent ways to deal with difficult situations. And believe me, many of those young people are faced with very difficult situations on a daily basis. The teenagers in that workshop were some of the most vibrant human beings I've ever encountered. They have so much to offer. Taking time to move beyond the stereotypes, I found some pretty amazing young friends. My experiences with young psychotherapists and those with juvenile offenders, as you might imagine, have been vastly different. They both, however, have allowed me to feel the energy, the excitement, and the honesty of some very amazing young people. Just a few weeks ago, some of my other young friends convinced me to join them in a 5K being held at UCSB on August 10th. The 5K is called Run or Die. And you can tell by looking at the slide that die is spelled D-Y-E. It's what's referred to these days as a color run, and hopefully by the end of the run, which because of my knees will mostly be a walk, I look something like these folks. This is an interesting combination, I guess, of a 5K and the Indian holiday of Holi. So you're all invited to come watch me make a fool of myself on that day if you like, or join me. But these events are obviously outside of this congregation. This morning I really want to focus on the young people of this congregation, both past and present, who've also been antidotes to getting old and who've assisted me in growing older. If you've been here long enough, you've seen some pretty amazing young people journey through this congregation. And we have been blessed with their many talents musicians, singers, dancers. And let's not forget the content of their character. Their credos presented during a number of coming-of-age services have moved me from laughter to tears and back again. And the current young people, watching them grow has been amazing. Young ones that used to sit on my lap during service but who are too old for that now. And yes, we have some new musicians and singers and dancers with their own amazing talents. If you spend some time volunteering in an RE class or attend their school plays or athletic events, you soon realize what a treasure this congregation has. These are my joys. But as with most things in life, there's a sorrow to go along with them. The treasure of our young people is currently comparatively small. Granted, this is a summer service, but how many of them do you see here today? We don't have enough of them in this congregation. And I see this as a crisis. So I'm sending out a plea to you this morning, dear friends. Find us some families with children. Invite them to a service or two and make them feel welcomed by spending time with them. Yes, we're looking for a new minister. And yes, we're looking for a new DRE. And when we find them, it will still not be them alone that solve this problem. They need our help. You see, this sermon is not just about my aging process. It's about this congregation's aging process. Once again, lest I be labeled an ageist, please don't misunderstand me. Our Live Oak elders and their wisdom are enormously valuable assets. But when our elders have no young people with whom they can share that wisdom, this congregation is in crisis. So I put forth this plea to all of you who are here this morning, and to all of you who may be out there watching on YouTube. We can make this happen. We need to make this happen. And we can start this process before we have a new settled minister and before we have a new DRE. Those two people alone, as I've said, will not be able to do this on their own. It's up to us to do our part as well. My sincere hope is that when I die, and believe me, I'm not planning on doing that anytime soon, but when it happens, I hope my memorial service takes place in this sanctuary, and that close to 50% of the people attending that service are under the age of 25. Help me realize my hope, and help this congregation be the vital place that it can be. Find young families with children. Call families who've been here before, but for whatever reason have left us. Befriend university students, invite them here, and hold them in your loving arms as you have held me and my family. And Live Oak will live forever. May it be so.
As our love flows, as far as our hope grows, as far as our yearning goes, we are no farther from one another. Go in peace.